Hey guys, welcome back. A lot of my Chinese friends ask me, Tim, is China more like Europe or more like the US? Well, I lived in Europe for 10 years before moving to China. I lived in Germany, Belgium, and Spain. And I know these three countries do not make up all of Europe, but humor me for the sake of this video. And I decided to put this video together to decide once and for all, is China more like Europe or more like the US? Before we get into the comparison, I would first like to thank everyone so much for 300 subscribers. Yeah, moving up the ladder. So thank you all for subscribing, watching the channel, liking the videos, leaving comments. Continue to do that. Continue to let me know what you want to see, and I will keep making videos. Also, congratulations to Zeta for winning the DJI Osmo Mobile 3 gimbal. I did the giveaway a few videos ago in the apartment hunting video, and Zeta left a comment and did everything I asked, and she won the gimbal. So congratulations again to her. And if you would like to participate in future giveaways and fun, fancy things that I may or may not do in the future, remember to subscribe. Do it now. Alright, so let's begin. What do you think? Is China more like the US or more like Europe when it comes to tipping? In China, people do not tip delivery guys. They do not tip waiters and waitresses. There are very rare, I've never seen anybody give a tip. Gratuity would be included, just like in the US, but no tipping. So I'm gonna give this one to Europe. Work-life balance. So living in Spain especially, but in Europe, I see this quite often. When work is over, people go home. And living in Spain, even if work's not over, you go home. And at lunchtime, you go home. And life is important in these places. So in the US, we are very much, capitalistic. Hard work equals more money, so people tend to work more. China has the same exact philosophy. Hard work is better. They don't always make more money, but they work hard. Somebody boss sends you a message on Saturday, you need to respond. And in the US, we're probably gonna do that. In Spain, yeah, you're not gonna hear from that person till Monday, till they need to be back at work. Try to call somebody on vacation, not happening. And that's all of Europe, because they value vacation. In China, when you first start a job, most Chinese people get no holidays their first year. No vacation, 0 days in their first year. And then later they build up to, 10, 15. 15 is like, whoa, so much. And you would never take that at the same time. So in France, they have the summer rush. In late July, everybody's leaving France, going to other countries or whatever. And then at the beginning of August, they're all coming back. So their 30-day vacation that they're taking, and this is not including Christmas and whatever national holidays, their work-life balance is better, in my opinion, than the US and China. So US gets this point. Okay, this next one is not necessarily Europe versus US. It's more the language that I speak that come from Europe. I guess English comes from Europe too. Anyway, we're comparing the languages. American English versus French and Spanish, which are the two European languages that I speak, and then Chinese. So because I'm not a native speaker in French, Spanish, or Chinese, of course they're gonna be closer when I'm finding these similarities in the language. For instance, the verb zhuo in Chinese means to do or to make, which are two different words in English. But in French, faire also means to do or to make. And in Spanish, hacer is to do or to make. So yeah, just because of this one verb, Europe wins that one. When you walk into a restaurant in the US, you are going to be inundated with customer service. Like, you're gonna be choking in it. They're gonna be just dishing it out. And most of this is because they wanna get a tip, but some of it's just part of the culture. Like, hey, we offer good customer service, come to our business over theirs. And then I moved to Europe and they were like, screw that, you're in my restaurant, you need to be thanking me. China, I was quite surprised because there's no tips, remember, to see how good their customer service is. People are very friendly, like, oh yeah, how can I help you? They'll check on you. It was weird. Not as much as the US, but way more than Europe. And it's done with a smile, usually. Smoking. Yeah, you already know where this is going. In the US, we're pretty much are anti-smoking. A smaller percentage of the population smokes in the US each year. It's a thing that we are actively combating. In China, it's not so much. There's smoking everywhere. And there's so many people, so there's so much smoking, it seems. Even if it's a small percentage of the population, it's a big population. So a lot of people still do smoke. And in Europe, same thing. It's not such a small population, but a lot of people smoke. And I can't figure it out. Maybe it's because the healthcare is not so expensive. I don't know, but smoking is, yeah, it's here and it's everywhere. no good for me. Europe, you get the point. So, backtrack to the last one, healthcare. China has a socialist healthcare system, just like most countries in the EU, very unlike the US. So, healthcare is just more affordable, or it's built into the tax system. Healthcare is accessible, and it's great, except for the doctors aren't necessarily any better. In Europe, I felt the doctors were okay, but here in China, my few experiences with doctors have not been what I would call convincing. I went online and I found out more information than the doctor actually gave me, and it's not a language barrier thing. They just are like, yeah, take some drugs. Healthcare, this one will go to Europe. So going back to that working hard all the time, as a consumer, you appreciate that businesses are open on holidays. And the US, I don't think McDonald's ever closes. There's lots of businesses that just never close no matter what the holiday is. And China does that too. Like everything is open every day, except Chinese New Year, some stuff closes. But there's always stuff open. In Europe, national holidays, like the whole country's shut down. Like nobody's working. So if you get robbed or something, the police aren't gonna help you till the next day. Everything shuts down. Probably leading back into that work-life balance. But as a consumer, I appreciate everything being open all the time whenever I want it. Public urination. And I don't mean like adults doing it. I'm really talking about kids. And this is one thing that kind of surprised me when I lived in Europe. I've seen it in a few countries where people are like, hey, you know, my kids gotta go to the bathroom, so we're just gonna go right here and you all should just look away. China takes it to a whole new level. Kids are just gonna do it right by the side of the road, like in public view. There's no shame. I don't know the word. In the US, you would never see this. And if you have to pee in public, you're gonna hide somewhere, like in the bushes or behind a tree, or you need some sort of like shield or protective barrier, and that's not how they roll here. So this one's gonna go to Europe. In the US, our largest meal is dinner. China, largest meal is dinner. Some parts of Europe, the largest meal is dinner. But Mediterranean countries, which I'm very familiar with, largest meal is lunch. So having lived in Spain right before coming to China, boom, culture shock. Because I was so used to eating big lunch and small little dinner. And here's back to the US style. Actually, US size is huge breakfast, huge lunch, huge dinner. But China, it's normal breakfast. Depends on what you want for lunch. But dinner is a big meal, and usually a family meal. I can definitely dig that. But I also like eating big lunch, so for me it doesn't really matter. Point goes to the US. Higher education. So university in China is fairly cheap, and in some cases it's free with scholarships and things like that, but scholarships are a lot more accessible for a lot of the people if you have good grades. They prioritize education here, so there's a lot more scholarships, and most of the schools are public schools, so the government is doing a lot of assistance for that. And in Europe, I mean, education, I'll never forget, I had a friend complaining about her master's. She's like, man, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay for this, and so I asked her, how much does it cost? She said 4,000 euro, and I was like, oh man, is that like per semester or per class? Or she's like, no, that's for the entire master's degree. What? Wait, hold on. I was paying like 1,000 for a book in my master's program. You were lucky. Don't complain to me. And so here in China, I don't know if it's as cheap as 4,000, but a lot of my friends have said it's a lot more affordable to get degrees here. So thankfully, I have not been injured here in China, but I have seen people using crutches. And here in China, they use the crutches that we use in the US, where they go under your shoulder and you crutch that way. And if you've read my blog that I used to keep back when I was living in Europe, they use the ones where it goes around your wrist, where in the US, we tend to associate that with some sort of mental disability or paralysis. In Europe, those are just the normal crutches. So if you break your leg, you're gonna be using those. But in China, just like the US, under the shoulders. Personal space. Yeah, so in the US, we have this idea of needing like 6 feet. When I moved to Germany, I'll never forget, I'm standing in line at the grocery store, and you know, I give the guy in front of me like 3 feet because it's a small store, and an old lady just walks right in front of me like I'm not standing there, because 3 feet means you're not in line. When there is a line in China, it's the same thing. You need to be on that person or people will not see you. I don't know if they just purposely don't see you or they just really don't see you because they'll just walk in front of you. Yeah, we're gonna give this one to Europe. My first year in China, I was very surprised to hear a knock on the door on October 31st and to see children dressed up in a Halloween costume asking for candy. In Chinese, of course. I didn't even have any candy. I didn't know that anybody outside the US did trick-or-treating. Apparently in my community, they did it. in my newer community last year, they didn't do it, but COVID, so. And I haven't confirmed this with any of my Chinese friends. They said it happens in some places it doesn't. So maybe this is just hit or miss, but nobody in Europe does trick-or-treating. It's not a thing. Kids don't even celebrate Halloween at all. Halloween is more of an adult holiday in Europe where people dress risque and, you know, dress up and have fun. In China, some adults do appreciate it, but Halloween is a children's holiday in China and in the US and more of an adult holiday in Europe. Public transportation. So if you live in the US, you probably don't even know what that is because so few places have it. Major cities have it, but even then, most people have cars. Not in Europe and China. They use the public transportation and it is efficient. It's good. I remember living in Europe, I had a car and I would drive most times, but I mean, it was just very easy to take a bus to city center. You don't have to worry about parking, which is super expensive in Europe. Public transportation in China is also phenomenal. Just everything is connected. You can pretty much go anywhere using public transportation. And if not, you know, you can DD the rest of the way, but most places are accessible. And I live in Beijing, so almost everything is accessible in a very large area. China and Europe, good job. US, come on, public transportation, man, get it going. So I never forget when I was living in Germany and we were talking with some German friends and the woman just had a new baby and she just, you know, starts to breastfeed right there at the table where we're just having lunch and nobody says anything. You know, she's just breastfeeding and she doesn't cover up or anything. You'd never see this in the US ever. Like, you will cover up. And most people would be too shy to do it in public anyway, so they're gonna go into a room. China's the same way. People, they have like rooms, breastfeeding rooms, airports and stuff like that, so you can be away. You don't need to do it in public. China, US, no breastfeeding in public, or very rarely. I've never seen it in China. In the US, I've seen some people cover up. And in Europe, I see some people cover up too. But I also see some people who don't cover up. That you will never see that in China or the US. Based on my experience with non-Americans, and I mean non-USA Americans, their idea of Americans' eating habits are pretty much universal outside of the United States. We only eat McDonald's and fast food and we're all fat. You know, we delivery and takeout and fast food. But what's interesting, as an American who doesn't eat a lot of fast food, all of these people who are telling me this eat more fast food than me and most of my friends in the US. It's the pot calling the kettle black. But in China, they eat a lot of fast food. It's very popular here. In Europe, they have other things. It depends on what country you're in. But in Beijing, McDonald's is always packed, and Burger King and all these places. And they're like, oh, Americans only eat fast food. I'm like, you guys only eat fast food. I have a colleague, he eats McDonald's every day. Now, this is definitely something Europe and China have in common. I do not have a driver's license here in China. I do not drive a car at all. But just watching, you know, traffic, you can kind of pick up on what the laws are. In China, they have a turn right on red law, just like we do in the US. In Europe, there's no turn right on red. If it's red, you need to stop. The difference between the US and China is that in the US, we stop fully, and then turn right. And then, you know, if you do a rolling stop, you're slowing down quite slow, you know, 5 miles an hour at the most before turning right on red. In China, it's a red light. I know this intersection, no slowing down at all. I'm talking about like 45 miles an hour, just taking this right-hand turn. People in the crosswalk, you don't care, they just go. It's next level. Turn right on red here. If you're a pedestrian or a biker or anybody walking this way, you need to watch out for cars because they're not watching out for you. In Beijing, in other cities, I have noticed that drivers are a lot more pedestrian courteous, or they actually seem to care. In Beijing, it's just what? And nobody can explain this to me. They don't know why it's so bad, but they all understand and recognize and agree that Beijing drivers are just aggressive for no reason, and they turn right on red, like in the US. So if I'm in a restaurant here in China and oh, Fu Yuan, da bao, there's no problem. Yeah, okay, come over. And actually here, they usually will do it for you. Sometimes they just give you the bag and you do it yourself, just like in the US. In Europe, you're like, oh, waiter, can I get this to go? Oh, what? Okay, I'll leave it here. Wow, okay. There's no to go. It doesn't happen. It's not a thing. And one time when I was living in Belgium, I did ask for it to go. I was feeling sick, and so I just said, hey, can I take this food home? It took them 25 minutes to get a box for me to go because they had to go to another restaurant because they literally did not have to go boxes. It's not a thing. China, US, we take food home. Looks like the score is tied here. Yeah, I did that on purpose. It's because China is not really like either America or Europe. It's very much like China. Let me give you a few examples. These are things that China does alone that neither the US nor Europe does. First one, not the best one, but it's the spitting. So every Chinese friend of mine and coworker and colleague all abhor, that means dislike greatly. Even though all these people don't seem to like it, so many people still do it. I talked about it in my fib nose video. It's gross, but at some point it just becomes like, okay, there's spit and you just walk around it because you just see it so much. So I mentioned earlier about personal space, and I mentioned lines. I made sure I made the caveat when I was talking about China, if there's a line, because if there is no railing or no forced made line, there's not always a line. It's like this is the opening, the entrance, and people just kind of pour in. First come, first served kind of thing. It's cultural, I guess. There's lots of times where there's just no line. You don't get it when you can get it, and you don't get it. And so all of this no line forming thing, I think, comes from what I've seen Chinese people's, I would say, philosophy. Bruce Lee's mentioned it once. He said, be water, my friend. They are like water. You can see it in traffic. You can see it when people are walking on the subway or whatever. It's just a flow of people. And just like water, if something's in the way, they flow around it. There's no stopping. It's not like malicious or anything. It's just they go. It's like water. So you see this with traffic too. We're defensive drivers in the West, so we are, always on guard. So we do a lot of stopping. Let's see what this guy does. Here it's a lot more aggressive, but it's not really aggressive. It's just there's a space and I feel it. I flow. Bikes, scooters, they just flow in traffic. Red lights, doesn't matter. Like, I see a gap, I go for it, because that's how water is. When there's space, water will flow. In the US, your mom will always say, hey, don't talk with food in your mouth. And in Europe, they probably would say it as well. I didn't see it much there. In China, like, sounds when you're eating is not a thing. It's just, I'm eating and I'm making noise, so who cares? Every dinner I've ever been at with Chinese people, somebody talks with their mouth open, and it's not a thing. Nobody cares. It's like, oh, yeah, there's no like cover your mouth while you try to talk. It's just all out there, which kind of leads into this next one. Making bodily noises is also perfectly fine in China. So you're at the dinner table, you're eating, you're just like, oh yeah, excuse me doesn't exist. If you sneeze, achoo, there's no excuse me. It's just, there's not even a bless you here, by the way. Bodily noises are perfectly okay for some reason. One noise that I hear here often that I wasn't ready to hear in public places or at work or whatever is the ks, ks, ks. People clipping their nails. People clip their nails in public, just walking around the park, clipping their nails, or in the office. I always hear somebody clipping their nails at lunchtime or something. In the West, we tend to do that at home. It's like a personal thing. But toothpicks, I talked about this before, this blows my mind. If you can talk with your mouth open, burp and fart and sneeze and clip your nails, but using a toothpick, people cover their mouths like this. Like, oh no, I can't let people see me picking my... What in the world is that? How is that where you draw the line? This is my reaction to that. In the US, when you were in high school, maybe middle school, depending upon where you live, there's always those cool kids or rebels or whatever that want to smoke cigarettes in the bathroom. But in China, the adults do this. At my job, at a place where I take Chinese classes, these are public buildings where people work and it's all adults, and they just go in the stall and smoke and play a game on their phone or whatever. Go outside. And even in my building where I work, there's an area by the elevators, no smoking signs everywhere, and this is where people go to smoke, and it's like the socially accepted smoking area with all the no smoking signs everywhere. Go there at least. Like, I don't go there, so fine, but I go to the bathroom. You can't just be smoking in the bathroom. Like, we're not 15. And it's every city I've been to in China. Every city I've been to, people smoke inside, especially if it's cold, especially if the pollution's bad. Why go outside to ruin your lungs when we can do it for you inside? Back to the flow thing, the flow of traffic in the West. If you are, walking and you bump into somebody, especially in America or Canada, like, oh, sorry, hey, sorry, oh, excuse me, It's like, even if the other person didn't see you or doesn't notice it, you would still say it. And in Europe, typically they would say excuse me or pardon me or something, or they would at least like wave or acknowledge. In China, incidental bumping, and there's just too many people. They're used to it. Water flows, it bumps into each other and just keeps going. There's no stopping. There's no like, hey, you touched my elbow and I need you to say something back. People hit me with like their bags and stuff. They don't even turn around and apologize. Like if you hit them, they're like, okay, it's like an incidental contact. It's part of life, I guess. And it's just this flow of lots of people. You can't not be bumped into. So why worry about it? Chinese people, men and women, don't have a lot of body hair. And I don't know if this is why or why not. They don't have a lot of body odor either. So it's a good thing for them. Bad thing for foreigners because it's hard to find deodorant in stores, and all the deodorant is the beauty stuff. It's not like antiperspirant or like, hey, I'm going to be doing some sweating. It was just great when you're on public transportation. It's very rare that you stand next to somebody that's like, oh my gosh, it smells terrible. And in Europe, like, you get heaping fulls of it all the time. And in the US, I can't say I've ever taken a public transportation, so I don't know. But I'm sure it's probably bad there too. Not here. No body odor. Strange. I mean, like if they exercise a lot or if they were out when the field's working, like, yeah, they'll smell bad, but not on the level where we have in the West. So another interesting thing, Chinese people I see, especially on social media, but also just people I talk to, they are very quick to criticize, Trump in this case, or just Western governments in general, but they will never say anything about their government. Ever. This country, they're doing it wrong, or they don't know what they're doing, or how can you guys live, with this president? They don't say anything about their people. I'm whispering that because I don't know if they're listening. We're all human beings, so there's things that, of course, that all three of these places have in common. I'm just going to point out a few of them really quickly. These are just interesting ones, aside from eating, sleeping, being human beings. In every country I've ever lived in, people wear clothes with words in a foreign language and they don't know what it means. In the US, people get tattoos in Chinese and Japanese and it doesn't mean what they think it means. And in Europe, people wear shirts with, English or other languages and they don't know what it means. In China, they go hard. They wear shirts and clothing and stuff with English words that aren't even real words. So you're looking at it like, that doesn't even make sense. And they're like, oh, it's English. I'm like, no, it's not. Those are our letters, but that's about it. So all over the world, people wear clothes with different languages on it because it's fashionable, even though they have no idea what it says. And having lived in so many different countries and traveled so much, I'm very well aware of stereotypes that Americans have, that Westerners have when I'm living here in China. 90% of the time, these stereotypes are wrong or incomplete or inconsistent. If you never leave your country, you're stuck with these stereotypes that are probably not true. Get out, travel, go see the world, get a real view of what the world is, what different people are like, and you'll be surprised. You're like, oh, it's not like I thought, or it's not like they said, it's not like the movies. Not every American owns a gun. Not every Chinese person knows Kung Fu. Not every British person has bad teeth. Not every French girl has hair under her arms. Not every German is 9 feet tall. Travel, go see the world. And of course, a lot of these negative stereotypes come from just not good people. Jerks, we'll call them. And every country has jerks. And if you are unfortunate enough to be traveling in that country and you meet one of these jerks, try not to let that give you your whole impression of all the people there, because it's probably not true. It's just they're a jerk. So don't think all of the French people are jerks because that one French guy was a jerk to you. And in China, don't think that everybody's rude to you because that one Chinese guy was rude to you. And not all Americans are going to shoot you because you did something wrong to them, because not all of us own guns. And we're probably not going to shoot you if we did. Anyway, every country has jerks. Don't use that to judge the entire population. So that's my list of observations that I've had. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Have you noticed things that I didn't add to the list? Put them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.